Today, as you can see, we are going to draw talking about different eye levels, different points of view. So if you would get your sketchbook set up and turn to page 16, we'll begin. To set our page up, to kind of let you know where we're going, on this side of the page, we are going to draw as if it were a large log that we're going to take a chainsaw to. To get it set up, the easiest way is to simply take your straight edge and draw two sidelines, two parallel. Just use your straight edge as a guide. And we're going to cut it off at the top. So you have a line like this. Now keep in mind that we will be erasing portions of this big space. So now down here, again, I just lay my straight edge on that side. And I have a very long rectangle. That rectangle is going to be the log that I chainsaw. Now, what I want to do is I want to make 5 sections, and in between the sections, I need some space left so that I can actually show you the different eye levels. So to start with, I would like, well, let's see, what will be the easiest way to go about this? The easiest way to go about this, I believe, is to kind of eyeball where the middle is. Eyeball where the middle is. And we want to make if you watch me 1 second, you'll see. And again, this does not need to be perfect, just somewhere close. And we're going to do our first log chunk. So I'm going to go like this. And then like this right here. And that's the first chunk of log. And we're going to talk about this being eye level. I don't see the top. I don't see the bottom. Let's kind of give it some little dimension here. I'm going to round the corners slightly. Put in some, I call these bark lines of my log. You might say, well, right now it looks like a tire. Truly it does. Again, I'm going to take my dirty blender stick. And down this entire log, I want to have a white shine in the middle that runs down the whole log. So instead of filling that all in, I'm not going to fill it in. I'm just going to leave it somewhat blank. If you filled it in, no big deal. We can go back and draw with our eraser. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to erase and we will call this eye level. So this is eye level. We don't see the top. We don't see the bottom. We're just looking straight on. So that's my first chunk, my first chainsaw chunk. Now we know that this can't be real because you don't suspend a log and see space in between it. But for the purpose of what we're doing today, it works well. I now want to just simply slide down a bit, lay this in here, about that same Distance, again, it does not need to be exact. Eyeball it, haha. I'm going to cut another chunk, and to separate my chunk, I'm simply going to erase. So hopefully you didn't draw your sidelines too terribly dark. So I'm going to erase that space. I'm also going to erase a little bit behind, underneath as well. So my next log, of which I've taken my chainsaw and I've cut, my next piece is going to be as if a bird were flying and approaching, but not completely over my log. What would a bird see? Choose for your gentle smile, as you've learned in drawing cylinders. Choose a space right here in the middle of this line. Choose a space for your, I'm going to curve at the side here, for your gentle smile, as you did in your cylinders. Now we know that we take a little measurement of the deepest point of the smile to give us where our frown will go. And at the bottom of this log, we also need to do a parallel smile. So here I'm going to cut the corner off, cut the corner off. I'm going to go for a parallel smile. Again, hopefully you're finding this to be review from the cylinder. So I have two parallel smiles, rounding here, put my frown in. Don't be afraid to move your book around a bit. And you will notice now that a bird that's approaching is going to see this top of your log. Eye level, didn't see top, didn't see bottom, but now slightly sees top. So to get this looking like a log, I'm going to erase my corners. I'm going to erase my guidelines. And if I want to give this somewhat the appearance of a log, I'm going to simply put in some bark lines. And now, if it truly is a tree, we know the indicator of how old a tree is are rings inside here. So again, these parallel the smile and the frown. So put your rings in. I would take your blender, do a little shading there. Take your blender here. Remember that we're leaving a white shine down our log. So the easiest way is to leave that, but if you accidentally shaded it, no big deal. You can go in and do an erasing. So now you have a bird's eye view. We're going to do one more bird's eye view as if the bird were actually almost over top the log. So a more of a drastic bird's eye view. So I'm going to take, and I notice that I have just enough left. Do your chunk. Again, similar in size. They do not have to be perfect or exact. But what's going to make the difference now is, instead of it being, when I choose my smile, I'm going to go a little bit deeper this time. So notice this. And the more I draw, the dirtier my straight edge becomes. So I got to clean it off a bit by erasing some of my markings. So right here is my smile. I need to have that same distance at the bottom here. And the indicator for my frown. I'm going to cut my corners off. I'm going to go for my smile down here. Don't be afraid to move your booklet around. Here. Again. So notice I have two parallel smiles. Hopefully you also have that. Now I'm rounding here at the corner. And I'm going to go for my frown. Keep in mind, if you're watching the video, feel free to stop it, pause it, because I'm going fairly quickly. Erase your guidelines. Now we're going to put in our details as we have in the slice above. So in putting in some log lines, some bark lines is what I call them. Kind of lost my sidelines there. And now the rings, the year rings. And again, these are parallel smile, parallel frown. They just get smaller as they come in. Use your blender stick. And then use your blender stick here. Again, I want kind of a hint of a white shine coming down my logs. And no big deal if you didn't remember and you shaded the entire thing, you can go back with your eraser. So now what I would say is you have two pieces, this one and this one, which are now both bird's eye view. Here the bird is approaching, doesn't quite see as much top. Now the bird is much closer and sees a lot of the top. So now we're going to go above and we're going to do two more chunks. And this will be what we call a worm's eye view. So if you were down low but looking up at something, this is how you would see the chunks of wood cut. Simply going to go up here. Again, I'm going to lay. Give yourself some space because you know you're going to do that cylinder piece. So I'm going to cut that. I'm going to erase the space in between. Cut my chunk. And what we could do is we could just get the next one ready because we need two more slices. That's what we're doing today, two more slices. So again, about the same width, leaving plenty of space in between. So I lay this on here. I notice this is a little bit smaller. I'm going to do it just a little bit bigger. So cut 2 more slices. And we'll be going faster now since you know what we're doing, except for now we're going to do more parallel frowns and only one smile. So I'm going to work on, this is the worm's eye view. I want to cut my corner, and now I am going to do a frown. So I'm just going to pick a distance here. And on this one, I'm going to cut my corner. We'll do these at the same time and cut my corner. But you see the distance here? Now I want the distance much larger for this one. Since I've picked that distance, boy, oh boy, my blender, my straight edge is very dirty. I erase some of my markings so I don't get confused. So the distance from here to here, I'm going to mark it here. Now I'm going to come to this line and I need to mark one line there and one line here. Here we go. This is my frown. And this will be my parallel frown. I'm going to round at the corners. This will be my parallel frown. And the distance here will be my smile. I will erase my guidelines. And now I have a chunk of my log cut. I'm going to put in my, and again, there's no real rhyme or reason to my pieces of wood. And put my tree earrings in like this. Take your blender stick. And again, just to give it a shine, a shade, we have one chunk. We're now going to go with a deeper chunk. We already established a deeper frown line there. So I'm going to cut my corners as it appears that I already have. Now, this distance here to here, I need to find it here to here. So I'm going to lay my edge in. I'm going to mark it. Come here, I'm going to mark it. Come here, oops, I almost run into my other log. I put my parallel frown. Again, I want these to be similar distance. I'm going to round at the corners and come down here and put in my smile. Erase my guidelines. Put in some bark lines. Put your ear rings in. Shade here. I get a little bit slobby here, so I'm just going to clean it up. So we would now call this a worm's eye view. The worm is crawling and not quite underneath the log, but the worm is much, much closer on this one and much closer underneath the log. So these two would become my worm's eye view. Right now, you have 3 different eye levels. You have eye level looking straight at something, eye level where you're underneath something, eye level where you're above something. So you've done these by doing cylinders. All of these take on the characteristics of a cylinder. But if you notice now, if you take your paper and turn it this direction, notice what you might have. Instead of thinking it as a chainsaw cut log, you could have tires. You could have a log, of course. You could have hay bales in a field. You could have cinnamon rolls. You could have sushi. You could have drums. And you might be able to even think of other things. So now what we're going to do is we're going to actually draw a lifelike object in the remaining portion of the paper as if you were in a field. You were in a large field and you were driving on a road past all these fields, and oftentimes country roads, you will see in the distance what's called a water tower. Now you go, well, why a water tower? Because oftentimes a water tower is so large, and as you get closer to the water tower, you will see it from a worm's eye view. You will be looking up at it. So to kind of show you what I mean by that, we're going to actually draw one. And in drawing this, I'm going to use my straight edge. And you might want to watch mine first to just kind of see. I'm going to make it a little bit wider than my actual straight edge. So I'm simply going to slide that. And make for yourself a rectangle. When you close your rectangle up, you want these lines to be fairly light. Mine are dark so that you can see them, but these 2 lines will be guidelines for us and we'll end up erasing. So, the beginnings of our water tower. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to determine how close we are underneath it. So, pick for yourself on this line, eyeball where the middle is, and pick for yourself the middle of the frown. Then take that distance, mark it on your straight edge, slide down here where you're going to put the middle of your smile. You're going to slide up here And you're going to mark it also for your frown because we are going to be doing the worm's eye view. And in doing so, round your corners slightly, round your corners slightly. Here you're going to cut your corners slightly, cut your corners slightly. If this is where I've chosen for my frown to be, the deepest part of my frown, do this. I'm going to check that because it looks like I may have kind of used the wrong measurement. I got a little high up here and it won't look parallel. So I'm also going to put my parallel frown here. So hopefully you have, oops. Getting kind of thick here. Hopefully you have two parallel frowns. In here, slightly rounded, and put your smile. Now, we're not doing a log, therefore we don't want to put the rings in the middle. In fact, we're going to attach legs, so we want to see in there, but I do want to erase I got pretty thick there. I'm using a 6B, which is fine to use, but notice how dark my lead is. So I have the beginning of my water tower. Now you may notice, well, you're really doing a cylinder, but upside down. You're exactly right. Here's the cylinder, the beginning of the cylinder. We want to make this look like it is actually got volume. So in doing so, I'm just going to put some details in here. I'm going to thicken that wall. I'm also going to use a big old metal tube in a hayfield. So I'm going to thicken this. And again, if you turned it upside down, you have the beginnings of a can of soup or a can of corn like we had done previous. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come inside, curve it, and I'm going to parallel this edge. We will be adding legs, but let's go ahead and put our label because oftentimes in a field you will see the name of a city. So I want to show you right now what not to do. A lot of times people will simply go in here and go. Two things wrong with this. One, the spacing of the letters and trying to jam in all the letters at the end when you see that you run out of room. We know, let it go. Don't do that. The other thing is, this is on a straight line. Keeping in mind, when we did the side of our Nike shoebox, we need to go with what our container is. And this one, we will draw for guidelines some parallel frowns. So hopefully you did not do that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and very lightly, again, mine are pretty dark just so that you can see them, and you may say, well, I don't even want to do guidelines. I would say that even after drawing lots of years, I still need to do guidelines just to get it looking accurate. So my guidelines are here. I'm going to pencil in. My long pole goes with the edge here. So that goes down. My long pole of my N. Notice the endings. Long pole of my G. Now, thicken your letters up. Some people will paint them fancy on a city. They will do scenes on their water towers. I'm just going to be rather boring. I thicken my letters up just for the sake of time. I'm not going to get fancy. If you wish to get fancy, go for it. So I've thickened my letters. Now what I'm going to do is erase my guidelines. We want to make this this water tower look three-dimensional, not flat. So right now it looks flat because there's absolutely no shading on it. So to get the three-dimensional look, I need to shade. And because I've done mostly frowns, I am going to lay my lead down and you'll notice today that I'm into giving my shade as though it's coming at the front and it's running down my objects as I did in a log and now I'm doing here. I notice that I really need to sharpen my pencil to expose more of my lead, but I don't want to take that time. But if I have a lot of lead exposed, it lays down the lead so much easier. So because this is a large area, I like to use paper towel. And you can go right over your letters, which is fine. You might need to clean your letters up when you're totally finished if they get really smudged around. I noticed that I lost my shine in the middle. Easy to do. You could take an eraser. You could take a mechanical drawing pencil eraser. This is the good use for a mechanical drawing pencil. The lead really doesn't work super well for us in art, but the eraser does. Notice that I'm not removing the shavings because I'm going to have those shavings work for me. So what you might need to do now, you may need to go in and just clean up your letters slightly. Now for the legs of my worm's eye view water tower. A little bit about legs. First of all, the tower wouldn't be upright if the legs weren't the same length. So we know in our brain that the legs are the same length. But as we view from a distance, the legs appear different lengths. So the side legs, we're going to put those in first. So they will attach right here, and they will come over the top of the back wall. So Notice I'm just getting a little, I'm putting a piece of metal here that goes down. And again, I want it to be parallel here. So using your straight edge is important. And I'm going to come down like that. I'm going to slide over because I want to thicken that leg up. So here is one leg. It attaches right up here, comes down right here. Now we're going to come to this side here. So it's going to come in here and here. So in here, I'll just do a little curve. Again, I want my line to be parallel. These legs are generally the same length in sight. Notice it comes over this back wall, so I'm going to shade that in. Oops. Got a little crazy there. I probably should have left my straight edge on there, but I could easily fix that. Okay, so I have my two side legs. They're parallel, they're straight up and down. My front leg and my back leg. My front leg is going to attach here. My front leg is actually going to come down, and it's actually going to appear a little bit longer. My back leg is going to attach back here, and it's actually going to appear a little bit shorter. We know they're all the same, but in sight and in view. So I did a little bit of a triangle. Going to put the leg in. Keep in mind, I want that parallel to here. So I'm going to put down there. And it's a leg that I need to do. Oops, not quite that thick. Come in here. So to give the illusion that this is three-dimensional and this is the front leg, it attaches here. The back leg, again, I want it to go parallel. And it attaches back here. And generally appears just a little bit shorter, although we know it isn't. But this is the appearance, is that these two are the same. The two sidelines are the same. The front leg slightly longer in appearance, the back leg slightly shorter. Now, because it is in a field, I'm going to have a little fun with it. I'm just going to put it laying in some grass. Again, I'm just kind of scratching up and down and then coming sideways. So I'm putting some grass there. The other thing I want to do is I want to take my blender stick and slightly, because the shading is what's going to make it look three-dimensional. Now, thinking about this water tower in a field, wind blows, there's no way this water tower is going to stay standing unless these legs would collapse if they did not have some support down here. So down here, the support is basically a parallel oval as the worm is seeing it. Here's the way to think about it. Back here, I'm going to go for this parallel. So the way to think about that is that let's see, how can I tell you this? The front leg attaches to the side leg. The front leg attaches to the side leg. So very lightly, the front leg crosses over the back, attaches to the side, attaches to the side. So here's our front leg here attaches in a smile fashion to the side. Now, to the back, my side leg goes to the back, but it doesn't go over top here. So it lifts up, it goes here, and this one goes here. Now, had I not shaded in the legs, it would probably be a little bit easier to tell. Front leg goes to side leg, front leg goes to side leg goes clean over to back leg goes to side leg. So now my water will be standing. So I have the best you can, a parallel oval, a smaller parallel oval down here. So our last thing is we're going to add just a little bit of a background because this is in a mountainous area. So I'm going to, with my rendering pencil, I'm going to kind of draw in the background a mountain sort of range. I know that we don't have a lot of space left. We'll do that. Just add some rendering. Maybe you can get fancy and you can add snow or whatever. But notice I just rendered some pencil lead that I'm going to rub around for my mountains, just to give it a little bit of a scene. So you now have a water tower that's from a worm's eye view, when you are looking and you're actually lower and looking up at something.